Welcome back to the Future Archive. Today, we examine archived broadcasts from July 8, 2026, a day that offered a remarkable cross-section of early 21st century anxieties. We'll cover a government agency that shouldn't have existed, a record fine for a tech giant, the blurred line between creativity and consent in AI, a warning to parents about digital risks, and the practical limits of rentable robots. The first story. Nigerian president investigates fake government agency operating in his office. In July 2026, Nigerian President Bola Tinubu ordered an investigation after reports emerged that a fake government agency had been operating undetected within the presidential complex in Abuja. The agency, calling itself the National Agency for the Promotion of Ethical Governance, had no legal authorization, yet managed to secure office space, issue official-looking documents, and even hold meetings. It was only discovered when a civil servant noticed discrepancies in its budget allocations. The scandal exposed significant gaps in Nigeria's administrative oversight, raising questions about how such an entity could function for months without detection. No arrests were made, as the perpetrators were never identified. This incident reveals much about institutional fragility in 2026. Governments were still relying on paper trails and human oversight, both of which could be circumvented with surprising ease. By 2050, historians would look back on this as an early warning sign of systemic vulnerabilities that would later be exploited by both criminals and AI-driven bureaucratic errors. The fact that no one was held accountable suggests a familiar pattern. When systems fail, responsibility tends to evaporate. Evidence later suggested an intern may have approved the office space. Paperwork was the only firewall, and it had a hole in it. The second story. EU fines Google a record €4.1 billion for anti-competitive Android practices. On July 8, 2026, the European Union imposed a €4.1 billion fine on Google, the largest antitrust penalty in history at the time, for abusing the dominance of its Android operating system to stifle competition. The EU ruled that Google illegally required manufacturers to pre-install its search and browser apps as a condition for accessing the Play Store, thereby blocking rivals like Firefox and Bing. The decision followed a decade of legal battles and marked a turning point in global tech regulation. Google appealed, arguing that Android's openness fostered innovation, but the fine stood as a landmark case in reining in big tech's market power. This ruling was part of a broader shift in 2026, as governments began to treat tech giants with the same scrutiny once reserved for oil barons and railroad tycoons. The fine, though substantial, was a fraction of Google's annual revenue, a fact that critics pointed to as evidence of regulatory toothlessness. By 2050, such fines would become almost routine, though their effectiveness in curbing monopolistic behavior remained a subject of debate. The case also highlighted a persistent contradiction. Societies demanded both innovation and fair competition, yet struggled to define where one ended and the other began. The fine was large, the problem was larger. The third story. Meta allows AI image generation from public Instagram photos without consent. Meta, the parent company of Instagram, faced widespread backlash in July 2026 after it updated its terms of service to permit AI tools to use public Instagram profile pictures for generating new images. The change meant that anyone's publicly shared photos could be fed into AI models to create synthetic content, without the need for explicit permission from the original poster. Critics, including privacy advocates and artists, argued that this violated users' consent and could lead to misuse, such as deepfake pornography or impersonation. Meta defended the policy, stating it was fostering creativity and that users could opt out by making their profiles private. This controversy underscored a growing tension in 2026, the collision between technological capability and ethical boundaries. Meta's decision prioritized innovation over individual rights, a choice that would become increasingly common as AI advanced. From a 2050 perspective, This moment is seen as a missed opportunity to establish clearer ethical guidelines for AI training data. Instead, companies and users were left to navigate a patchwork of inconsistent rules. It also demonstrated humanity's favorite strategy, addressing problems only after they became scandals. Consent was optional until it became a problem. The fourth story. Parents warned not to share children's images online due to AI abuse risks. In July 2026, cybersecurity experts and child safety organizations issued urgent warnings to parents about the risks of sharing children's photos online. The concern was that AI tools could manipulate these images to create realistic but fabricated content, such as placing a child in compromising or dangerous situations. Reports had already emerged of AI-generated images being used for bullying, blackmail, and exploitation. Authorities advised parents to limit sharing, use privacy settings, and consider tools that could detect AI-altered images. The warnings highlighted a dark side of AI's rapid development, its potential to weaponize personal data against the most vulnerable. This alert was one of the first signs that AI's capabilities were outpacing society's ability to protect itself. By 2050, the advice would seem quaint. By then, most parents assumed any public image of their child would be misused within hours. The warning also exposed a generational divide. Older internet users, accustomed to sharing freely, struggled to adapt, while younger parents, raised on digital caution, were already restrictively private. It was a reminder that every technological leap forward carried the risk of new forms of harm. The internet remembered what parents forgot. The fifth story. Rentable robots enter homes and workplaces with mixed results. A new service launched in 2026 allowed individuals and businesses to rent robots for short-term tasks, from cleaning homes to assisting in warehouses. Companies like RoboRent and TaskBot offered humanoid and specialized machines by the hour or day, marketed as a cost-effective alternative to purchasing. Early adopters reported varied experiences. Some found the robots efficient for repetitive tasks, while others encountered limitations in complex or unpredictable environments. Critics questioned whether the robots were truly practical or merely a novelty, and labor unions raised concerns about the long-term impact on human employment. The service's success hinged on whether the robots could justify their cost, and whether users could tolerate their quirks. The rise of rentable robots in 2026 was a precursor to the broader automation wave that would reshape labor markets by 2050. At the time, the technology was still clumsy, but the economic logic was clear. Businesses and consumers were eager to offload tasks to machines, provided the price was right. The mixed reviews reflected a common pattern in tech adoption: early promise followed by disillusionment, followed by gradual improvement. It also foreshadowed the subscription wars, as companies soon began charging monthly fees for access to robot features that were once included. They could do the work, but not the thinking. July 8, 2026, offers a snapshot of a world grappling with the consequences of its own inventions. Governments struggled with oversight, tech companies pushed boundaries, and individuals navigated a landscape where both opportunity and risk multiplied daily. The past, as always, is not going anywhere. This has been the Future Archive.